Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Great military industry, starting from agricultural machinery factory as machine armor. In 1990, the world situation was turbulent and unpredictable. Eagle Sauce and Hairy Bear compete for supremacy, while Xia Guo is still picking up his tail to make a rabbit. The technological priest of Feilu Foundry in the golden age of humanity, who traveled through time, became the director of the rabbit agricultural machinery factory. Lin Can. We don't know how to make agricultural machinery either. I can only do Hydra anti-aircraft tank, equipped with original artificial rain bombs, lightning fighter jet, equipped with factory pesticide spraying and hanging cabin, a stat power A, equipped with original mining power hammers, moon-class interstellar cruiser, providing transportation plans for autumn harvest rice. Dry, can't keep up. P.S. Customers are prohibited from replacing product parts without authorization. Once discovered, warranty will not be provided. P.S. Strongly protest against the slander of Eagle Sauce. Our factory is actually an agricultural machinery factory and does not produce any combat mecha at all. P.S. As for why the customer is wearing mining protective suits to fight. Our factory technicians are still investigating. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Xiaguo Agricultural Machinery Factory. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Today, only the remaining body remains. Welcome the glorious years. Embrace freedom in the wind and rain. This is a simple dormitory of less than 10 square meters, with posters of Hong Kong and Taiwan celebrities pasted next to the iron frame bed. The radio outside the window brought in the rhythm of popular songs. Lin Can opened his eyes, climbed up and sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his head and staring blankly for more than 10 minutes. In the broadcast, we moved from the glorious years to the alliance of the broken love front, and then to the special love for you. Lin Can shook his head and got up from the bed, came to the wooden window painted red, and pushed open the window leaf. Guo Tianwang's slightly rock and roll cheerful voice grew louder, and he crawled into the dormitory and into Lin Can's ears. Lin Can's gaze swept over the desk calendar in front of the window, and then looked out at the rows of low factory buildings surrounded by green plants. After experiencing confusion and loss of focus, the eyes slowly refocus and become lively. After a period of contemplation, he accepted this fact. I've traveled again. Lin Can return to Blue Star, with a timeline of November 1, 1990, specifically located at Xiaguo Agricultural Machinery Factory under the jurisdiction of Ningqiang, Shaoxiang Province, Xia Province. This is a bit of a mentality, Lin Can took a deep breath, looked up and closed his eyes, showing a slightly headache-like expression. This is his second time traveling, the first time from Blue Star in 2023 to the era of Warhammer M20, at a mechanical research institute in the Martian industrial world. Without a system, he spent hundreds of years in that era and finally became a senior engineer at the Mars Mechanical Research Institute. Unexpectedly, as soon as I closed my eyes, I traveled back through my second journey and returned to my original Blue Star world. However, the timeline was chaotic, going back to when I was 18 years old, to the township agricultural machinery factory that my father owned. To be reasonable, we are from the golden age of humanity and still a senior mechanical engineer. My mind is full of science fiction weapons, the design and principles of interstellar warships. Can't you get me back to 2023, get me back to 1990. Lin Can muttered a sentence, feeling somewhat helpless. As is well known, the summer of 1990 was still a relatively backward and impoverished stage. The various technological and industrial strengths are not enough to support Lin Can's use of the Golden Age technology in his mind. Okay, 90 years also has its benefits. Although the conditions are a bit more rudimentary, at least I have been a person for 3 lifetimes and can still overcome difficulties. Lin Can has tried several times. Although I have traveled back and forth twice, I still don't have any system or golden finger-like things. There was no displayed value on the online game panel, nor was there a ring or grandpa attached. However, it's not that there are no benefits at all. Lin Can's face slowly brightened up, and an excited light flickered in his eyes. Lin Can found his memory incredibly clear. This includes memories of the first generation living on Blue Star until 2023, and memories of the second generation living on Mars for nearly 300 years at the Mars Institute of Mechanical Research. That is to say, Lin Can knows the development pattern and time direction of Blue Star, and he still has technological knowledge from the world of Mars casting during the golden age of humanity in his mind. Hundreds of technology STCs. From laser gun STC to mecha tank STC, from starship STC. In the golden age of Mars, Lin Can was a senior engineer and a golden man. The lifespan can easily reach hundreds or even thousands of years, and the thinking and memory are more than tens of times that of ordinary people. It can be said that it is the optimal form of human genes and evolution. Returning to Blue Star in 1990, Lin Can seems to have inherited this. The hundreds of STC blueprint directories in my mind, which I have been familiar with for hundreds of years, are now incredibly clear. STC stands for Standard Template Construction in English. The STC system is a complex analytical and processing program created by artificial intelligence during the golden age of humanity. It is said that she encompasses all human technologies. It's a bit like the blueprint for building machine gun turrets in a survival and construction online game. After you have laid out the blueprint, simply follow her prompts for materials and tools, add the corresponding ones, and you can create the corresponding machine gun turret. The entire STC is a treasure that all humans cannot fully understand. Belonging to something developed by artificial intelligence in the golden age, the knowledge content is too extensive, and no one can master it. However, as a senior engineer in the Martian industrial world, Lin Can has participated in and built hundreds of creations of various sizes, and the STC of these creations is still familiar and mastered by him. So, that's why. Lin Can knows the direction of Blue Star in the next few decades and also possesses technology that surpasses Blue Star by 20,000 years, which is his greatest reliance and golden finger. It seems that myself in 1990 could also cause a different wave. According to Lin Can's memory of Blue Star, Xia Guo in this era was still relatively transparent on the international stage. In the following year, Eagle Sauce will awaken the world with a battle in the Gulf region. Announcing the advent of the information warfare era, ending the traditional era of steel and establishing Eagle Sauce's world hegemonic position. Then, the leader of the Xia dynasty, the Mao Xiong alliance, disintegrated, and Eagle Sauce's complete victory in the Cold War became unbeatable. And Xia, due to its different forms of consciousness, has been struggling to grow under the pressure of Eagle Sauce ever since. Having endured hardships and grievances. This situation continued until 2023. Lin Can remembers that even in the 23 years of his first life, Yingjiang was still the only superpower in the world. At this time, Xia Guo began to emerge, but still walked on thin ice. In summary, as a military enthusiast, Lin Can in his first life has suffered a lot of frustration. In this life, since I have come, then I will change. Lin Can closed the window and sighed. Then I tidied up and prepared to go out. Changing the world is still too early, and the current situation is that the newly inherited and grown agricultural machinery factory is about to go bankrupt. Saving the agricultural machinery factory first is the hard truth. Chapter 2. Developing New Products. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lin Can's dormitory is located on the 5th floor of the only 5-story office building in the agricultural machinery factory. In addition to this 5-story office and dormitory dual-use building, there are also more than 10 factories and warehouses of various sizes in the entire factory area. The previous flagship products of the agricultural machinery factory were wheeled tractors and tracked tractors. Although sparrows are small, they have all 5 organs. When Lin Can passed by the 3.5 floors, he found that the door on the first half was ajar. He extended his head in to take a look. "Hi, Luo." Lin Can said hello. "This is the factory's broadcasting room, where a young female worker is playing music on equipment. Director Lin." Lu Lily greeted Lin Can with a smile and deftly changed the tape of the recorder, then began playing back the glorious years in a loop. Lin Can nodded with a smile and continued to walk downstairs without stopping. Xiaguo Agricultural Machinery Factory was originally a state-owned factory under the jurisdiction of Ningcheng. However, with the reform and opening up and the restructuring of state-owned enterprises, it was contracted by Lin Can's father and several uncles. Transformed from state-owned factories to private enterprises. If it were still a domestic factory, the radio would play, "I contribute oil to the motherland," instead of Hong Kong and Taiwan pop music. However, in this era, state-owned enterprises have the advantages of state-owned enterprises, and private enterprises also have their own difficulties. If Xiaguo Machinery Factory is a profitable factory, it will not be sold by the local authorities. Although some private enterprises have taken off from the forefront of the storm, they also require their leaders to have exceptional knowledge and financial luck. Obviously, Xia Guo Agricultural Machinery Factory is not a profitable factory, and the contractors who accept it are not considered to have exceptional knowledge. It's about Lin Can's father and those uncles. Originally, there were some locally allocated orders within the national factory system. After being converted into a private enterprise, those orders cannot be preserved, and new orders cannot be developed. So it was natural for Xia Guo Agricultural Machinery Factory to face bankruptcy after less than 10 years of privatization. There are no orders, the workshop has been on vacation for a long time. Technicians and workers have also been poached almost completely. If there are not significant changes, according to the trajectory of Lin Can's past life, Xia Guo Agricultural Machinery Factory can still last for about a year. We will close the door and have good luck. This 1-year period depends on the fact that the agricultural machinery factory still has tens of thousands of yuan on its books. If all of it is spent, it will be gone in this era. There is no concept of piece rate wages, and workers are paid monthly. So in Lin Can's first life, although he was the heir of the agricultural machinery factory, he did not live the life of a wealthy second generation. But after the factory closed down, he became an ordinary social animal until crossing Mars. However, in this life, since Lin Can has returned from Mars and before the closure of the agricultural machinery factory, so Lin Can needs to make changes. If he can't become a wealthy second generation, then he needs to become a creative first generation. Coincidentally, this agricultural machinery factory also manufactures machinery and equipment, which bears a slight resemblance to my experience on Mars. Lin Can arrived at the second floor of the office building and knocked on several office doors one by one. "Please have the department head come and let's have a meeting." Soon, several leaders from the forging department, machining department, assembly department, business department, technology department, finance department, and logistics department of the agricultural machinery factory appeared in the office. And Lin Can himself is the acting factory director. There are men and women in the conference room, and there are people of all ages. Everyone looked at Lin Can with some confusion, not understanding the reason why Lin Can suddenly summoned everyone. "Shao Can, there's no reason for it. Is there anything to announce when we suddenly gather everyone?" Chiefly of the finance department has relatively old qualifications and is a shareholder of an agricultural machinery factory. He took the initiative to ask. "Uncle Li, don't worry, wait for others." Lin Can said a word to Accountant Li and then continued to stare at the door. Lin Can did not pay attention to Director Li's direct name, but did not disclose anything, only saying that everyone was announcing. Until several key members of the technical department also came in, Lin Can finally withdrew his gaze. Lin Can looked around the conference room and saw that the top management and elites of the entire agricultural machinery factory were present. A few older people, obviously a little impatient, looked around, some even lit cigarettes. That is the uncle who owned the agricultural machinery factory with Lin Can's father, one generation older than Lin Can. Some younger people are more honest, curious and staring at Lin Can, waiting for him to speak up. Cough, we have a meeting. Lin Can coughed and shouted. The young people sat up straight, while the elderly also placed their hands holding cigarettes on the table, leaning slightly towards Lin Can. Lin Can squinted her eyes and her gaze fell on the rising smoke in Chief Li's hand for 2 seconds. But there was no speech. Just muttering in my heart. The senior engineer is having a meeting. If it's on Mars, I'll take you out every minute to transform it into a mechanical servant. Each department should first report on the production and sales situation of last month, Lin Can instructed. The forging workshop did not start construction last month, and production was 0. The machining workshop did not start work last month and production was 0. Last month, the assembly workshop assembled 7-wheeled and 3-tracked tractors using inventory components. Last month, the business department ordered 3-wheeled and 1-tracked tractors. There are a total of 20 accessories, including wheels and tracks, in the warehouse, as well as 15 finished tractors without orders waiting to be shipped out. The heads of each department immediately reported their scores in a concise manner. This score is not hard to remember, it's pitifully rare. I can memorize almost all the drafts. After accounting by the finance department, last month's expenses exceeded 80,000 yuan, with an income of 50,000 yuan and an overall profit and loss of 30,000 yuan. Chief Li of the finance department extinguished the cigarette in his hand and finally reported the most critical data of the agricultural machinery factory calmly. Upon hearing this, Lin Can's face turned black. Although I had known before that the agricultural machinery factory was in turmoil, I didn't expect it to be even more difficult in reality. NEMA, a future electric vehicle that has been touted by netizens as going bankrupt every day for 23 years, can sell dozens of units in a month. Last month, our agricultural machinery factory sold 4 units and produced 10 units. The production of these 10 vehicles has become inventory once they are produced. It's because they are afraid of rusting workshop equipment that they bite their teeth in production. Also, it is necessary to ensure that some technical worker positions are left for the factory, as far as possible. But the machines produced are not bought by anyone, and if we continue to produce like this, we will lose more and more money. If it really doesn't take a year, we will have to shut down. Lin Can had a plan in his heart and glanced at everyone again. This is not a solution. I am planning to establish a new project team to develop new products. How many elites need to be drawn from each department to participate? Is there a problem? Chapter 3. Internal Resistance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What new product? Xiao Can, I'm warning you, there isn't much money on the factory's account. You can't act recklessly. Have you consulted your father's opinion? As soon as Lin Can finished speaking, there was a commotion in the conference room, and Chief Financial Officer Li shouted anxiously. Seeing Lin Can's sharp gaze, Chief Li blushed and continued with a thick neck. It's useless for you to look at me like this. There are all high-level executives present, and I'm not afraid to speak up. At present, the factory's account only has a maximum of 100,000 yuan in funds. The sales situation is not good now, and everyone still relies on it to pay salaries. Lin Can only said he wanted to approve a new product, but the biggest rebound was in the finance department. There's no way, factories and enterprises in this era still don't play finance very well. I play with cash flow and do as much as I have. When the money is spent and the funds are broken, it goes bankrupt. What Director Li said is also true. If the factory loses this 100,000 yuan slowly, it can still hold on for a while. If you mess around with any new products, you might end up losing money in 2 months. Yeah, Xiao Can, developing new products is not an easy task. Our factory's equipment is relatively outdated and our technological processes are also relatively backward. Currently, it seems difficult to transform. The head of the technical department also followed suit. In fact, it's still competitiveness. The current business environment in China cannot be said to be too good. Truly profitable and leading products are basically controlled by domestic factories, and it's difficult for small factories like us to get involved. Think about our tractors back then, they were also considered flagship products. Who knew that since we paid out our wallets to contract them, they have been difficult to sell? The head of the business department also shook his head. The three people who expressed their opinions are all people who jointly funded and contracted the Xiaguo agricultural machinery factory with Lin Can's father. Initially, Lin's father invested 70,000 yuan, and each of them invested 10,000 yuan to acquire the factory from the Ningqing Industrial Bureau. So in the conference room, they have the most say. Their three shareholders sit in the most valuable positions of finance, technology, and sales. Lin's father, on the other hand, sits as the factory director with an absolute equity advantage. Recently, Lin's father suffered from illness in order to improve the daily conditions of the factory and went to take care of himself at home. It was only then that Lin came to take on the responsibility. At the end of the day, these people don't have any major skills, they are too old and have outdated ideas. The only thing they did right was to raise funds to establish this agricultural machinery factory at the beginning of the reform and opening up. But if we really want to make a factory bigger and stronger under the new wave, our capabilities are not enough. The closure of Xiaguo agricultural machinery factory in the past life was inevitable and deserved. Lin can just propose to develop a new product, but before he could say what it was, the antique enthusiasts stood up and opposed it all. Other department heads do not have this confidence. Some of these people are confidants recruited by shareholders, while others are management personnel with outstanding abilities and promotions. These people are actually thinking of change, wanting to change the decline of the factory and stabilize their job positions. Even if the three shareholders clearly disagree, these people do not agree and continue to stare at Lin Can with doubts. I want to see what Lin Can has. Lin Can glanced at the dissenting shareholders but was not angry. Their abilities, cognition, and courage are not enough, and we cannot blame them. But as a person for 3 lifetimes, returning to the agricultural machinery factory is about making changes. They couldn't help but chatter and chatter. I didn't discuss it with you, I came to announce it. I, as the factory director, announced the establishment of a new project team, and select key personnel from various departments to participate in the team. All departments unconditionally cooperate with the project team's work, including the finance department's full financial support. Lin Can is a man who has seen the vast sea of stars and is too lazy to argue with shareholders, wanting to strike a decisive conclusion. It's the acting factory manager, it's the acting one. Upon seeing Lin Can's dominance, Chief Li immediately shouted out. Even if you are the acting factory director, you cannot move the 100,000 yuan lifeline in the factory. We have the right to oppose it. We need to discuss with your father. After exchanging a glance with the head of the technical department's business department, Director Li firmly said. It seems that they are stubborn to the end, unwilling to accept any changes or emerging things. Lin Can's face finally turned black, and he took a deep look at the 3 stubborn shareholders. Who doesn't want their factory to get better and better, especially the shareholders? But at this moment, shareholders have this idea: on the one hand, they don't believe in the new product, they don't believe in Lin Can. There is another main reason, and Lin Can is also very clear about it. Taking a deep breath, Lin Canchong said in a deep voice to the 3 shareholders. I know a few uncle's thoughts, and I can agree to them. I can sign a gambling contract with you under the notarization of all senior management. If the new product fails, I will step down as the acting factory manager. Xiaguo Agricultural Machinery Factory adopts a rotating factory director system to elect a new director, and your major shareholders will give priority to the election. how's it going? Lin Can made a decisive move, and upon hearing this, Chief Li and others were taken aback and exchanged glances. Lin Can looked at the eye contact between the three and couldn't help but show a meaningful smile. In fact, the three shareholders also know that the factory is running out of business and will soon go bankrupt. In fact, another forging factory in Ningxing has already announced plans to acquire Xiaguo agricultural machinery factory for a price of 1 million yuan. Except for Mr. Lin, the three shareholders led by Director Li actually intend to sell the agricultural machinery factory. Because they only invested 10,000 yuan and held 10% of the shares at that time, and also made money and received dividends over the years. Now the factory can't continue, and if you sell it again, you can still get a share of 100,000 yuan. They only have this kind of understanding, not only willing, but also quite happy. However, the Lin family has put in the most effort, holds the most shares, and has the greatest say. The Lin family is unwilling to sell, although they are anxious for a while, there is no good way. On the contrary, if we drag on like this, we are worried that the factory will become more yellow, less valuable, and devalue the gambling agreement proposed by Lin Can now states that if Lin Can loses, he will make way for Director Li to become the factory director. That means that after Lin Can loses, Chief Li and others can take the initiative to sell the agricultural machinery factory. Take the money and leave. Sure enough, after some eye contact, Chief Li's tone immediately changed. Xiao is actually a young person with a more lively mind. You have this kind of thought for the sake of the factory. I admit it was me who spoke a little louder just now. Xiao, what new product do you want to develop? Chapter 4. Eliminating Resistance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I want to research something. Don't worry, let's continue talking about the gambling agreement. I think uncles would also like to know the details of the gambling agreement, and sign it as soon as possible before I can approve the new product project, right? Lin Can didn't want to entangle with a few people and made a decisive decision. Director Li and several others laughed at the words, but did not refute them. Instead, they made a statement of listening. For them, selling the agricultural machinery factory as soon as possible and receiving their respective 100,000 yuan is the most important thing. What I said about the gambling agreement is absolutely true and valid. When signing, not only will the senior management of the entire factory witness, but I will also invite the Ningxing Justice Bureau to be present for justice. Lin Can ignored everyone and said to himself. Upon hearing these words, Chief Li and several others showed signs of ecstasy on their faces. But I have one condition, you also have to listen carefully. If the new product fails, I will hand over control of the agricultural machinery factory. But if I succeed, I have the right to prioritize the acquisition of several uncles' shares in the agricultural machinery factory. Every 10% of the shares are valued at 200,000 red coins. Lin Can added. Director Li and others, upon hearing this, their faces slightly changed. A few people exchanged glances and exchanged expressions. In fact, for their three small shareholders, selling the factory is the biggest goal. If the factory sells it, they can probably divide it into 100,000 red coins per person. So what Lin Can said is, if Lin Can succeeds and spends 200,000 red coins to acquire their shares, they definitely have no objection. After all, they are old and lack pioneering spirit, only seeking a severance pay of 100,000 yuan. If there could be 200,000, it would be even more desirable. Sure, but what is the criterion for judging your success or failure? Director Li eagerly agreed to Lin Can's request and raised questions. The other two shareholders also looked at Lin Can with great concern. Lin Can pondered for a moment and said in a deep voice, based on the new product being made and someone placing an order, regardless of the size or amount of the order, it counts. Upon hearing Lin Can's words, the head of the business department immediately interjected, Xiao, don't blame your uncles for bullying your young age. As the acting factory manager, you speak your mind. The person in charge of the business knows how difficult it is to sell the products of the agricultural machinery factory now. The head of the technical department and Director Li also agreed, sign the agreement now. These two people have no faith in Lin Can's research and development of new products, nor do they care about the 200,000 yuan buyback. They just want Lin Can to sign the agreement quickly and surrender control. The factory sold well and disbanded with money. People do not believe that Lin can succeed, nor do they believe that there is still room for salvage in this agricultural machinery factory. Lin Can nodded when he saw the expressions of several shareholders. Okay, we'll draft the agreement later and then go to the Ningqing notary office for fairness. Next is the matter of establishing my project team. Do you have any further opinions? Lin Can asked everyone if they had any further opinions, but Director Li and the three of them stood up with a casual excuse and left the conference room. They have reached an agreement with Lin Can, and if Lin Can fails within 6 months, they will hand over the factory and still sell the factory to pay for it. The prerequisite is that Lin Can develops a new project, and they are not interfering or causing obstacles. So at this moment, they simply left the meeting. Lin Can watched as the three shareholders left the conference room without showing any unusual expressions. In fact, both myself and my family have no grudges or grievances with the three shareholders. Even if we push forward a few years, Lin's father and the others have a good relationship, otherwise they wouldn't have partnered to build a factory together. It's kind of like a family friend. Now it's just a matter of not conspiring with each other, and I'm not considered a palace fighter or clearing out dissidents. This is also the reason why Lin Can is willing to offer 200,000 yuan to acquire their shares. After the three of them left the conference room and closed the door, Lin Can withdrew his gaze and looked at everyone in the room. Without the obstruction of three shareholders, most of the middle and senior management in the conference room are working and obedient. In the next 6 months, it is also a good time for Lin Can to showcase his ambitions and skills without any disturbance from shareholders. I announce. I will personally be responsible for the finance department, technology department, and business department in the second half of the year. Stop all existing agricultural machinery production activities within the next 6 months. The forging department, machining department, assembly department, electrical department, and other departments will immediately start, and the responsible person will convene all technicians for professional skill training. All departments are waiting for my new arrangements, within this week. Since they have wagered with Chief Li and others, they have completely delegated power. Lin Can simply stopped all activities at the agricultural machinery factory and focused on waiting for his new product. The backbone of the technical department and the backbone of the procurement department will stay for a while, and the others will disperse. Everyone looked puzzled upon hearing these words. I didn't expect that Lin Can, the old god, was gambling with Director Li, but at this moment, the meeting broke up without any explanation. It seems like I just said a sentence asking everyone to hurry up with their studies and wait for arrangements. However, Lin Can has already seen off the guests, and although everyone was confused, they still went out honestly. Anyway, it will be arranged within a week. Factory Director Zhang Wei, the head of the technical department, shouted Lin Can. Zhang Wei and procurement specialist Meng Ting looked at Lin Can in confusion, as they stayed and waited for Lin Can's arrangements. Lin Can sat in the main seat with a thoughtful expression on his face. The conference room was empty, and Lin Can remained silent. The two of them looked inexplicably. Factory Director, do you have any other arrangements? Or do you have any directions and requirements for your new product development? Zhang Wei asked again. After all, Lin Can said he wants to develop a new product, which seems to have some connection with the technical department. Oh. Lin Can seemed to have been awakened by Zhang Wei before he realized it. It's okay, you guys should be busy too. I'll come back to you in a week. Lin Can said to Zhang Wei and waved to see off the guests. Lin Can, who had his first meeting after his rebirth, returned to his office. Just now, Lin Can did lose his mind for a moment. He stepped out of Haikou and signed a bet. But Lin couldn't really determine what products he should make to save the agricultural machinery factory for a while. In 1990, it was not easy for Xia Guo to make money in this era, and even households with 10,000 yuan were a rare presence in rural areas. The factory workers only earn around 500 yuan per month. The price of wheeled tractors in agricultural machinery factories is only 10,000 yuan per unit. Lin has a lot of high-tech STCs in his mind, but which product is suitable for agricultural machinery factories to produce, sell well, and have high profits? And the most important thing is that the STCs that Lin is familiar with are all weapons of war. He doesn't even know how to make agricultural machinery. Damn it, then go ahead and get weapons. Selling tractors. Where can we make money by selling tanks? Chapter 5. Hydra Anti-Aircraft Tank. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Selling agricultural machinery is not as good as selling weapons. Lin pondered for a moment, and his gaze happened to sweep over the desk calendar. If he remembers correctly, it is now the end of 1990, and there are less than 2 months left before a major event occurs in the other half of Blue Star. At this moment, in the Gulf of the Middle East, the country of Ike should have invaded its neighboring country of Kot. If nothing unexpected happens at this moment, Eagle Sauce is seriously negotiating and protesting against the country of Ike. But at this moment, it considers itself the world's third military power, with a 1 million-strong army and a torrent of steel. They feel like they are the third in the world and don't even take the world's #1 Eagle Sauce seriously. So we won't pay attention to Eagle Sauce's protests and condemnations. Ike and Kot countries, and even the entire Middle East region, are oil-producing regions that are not short of money. As is well known, oil breeds the U.S. military, so Eagle Sauce country will definitely intervene in Middle Eastern affairs. Ike is arrogant and doesn't give any face. Eagle Sauce will turn around and launch 2 aircraft carrier formations, dispatching over 100,000 troops to attack the country of Ike. According to the timeline of the past life, the attack of Eagle Sauce happened in January 1991. 2 months later. And what happened next was a famous scene in the world's military history that could be described as an explosion. Eagle Sauce only took 42 days to kneel down the world's third-largest military power, Ike, causing 100,000 casualties and incalculable losses in the country of Ike. At that time, Ike claimed to be the world's third strongest country not out of thin air, but because it really had a very powerful army. At that time, the Ike army had 950,000 regular troops, over 800,000 reserves, and weapons equipped with 5,600 tanks, 7,500 armored vehicles, 3,800 artillery, and over 700 aircraft. Moreover, Ike had the largest and most modern air defense system in the Middle East at that time. In terms of weapon quality and quantity, Ike's overall military strength exceeded that of Xia at that time. But even such a proud army of steel can only end with a ratio of 100,000 casualties to hundreds of casualties. The process of the war between the two sides can be said to be completely one-sided, cutting leaks, being harvested, and being defeated. Ultimately, this is an asymmetric war, a dimension reduction strike. Eagle Sauce used information warfare for the first time on Blue Star, showcasing a higher level of military technology. Just like Columbus holding a foreign gun and the indigenous people holding wooden sticks who conquered the New World for the first time. The world's third-largest country, in front of Eagle Sauce at this moment, is just an indigenous person holding a wooden stick, being mercilessly slaughtered and harvested. This war not only awakened Ike's dream of becoming a third world power. At the same time, it also woke up many countries on Blue Star, and suddenly realized that Eagle Sauce had played differently from itself, standing at a higher position than itself. For every high-ranking official or military enthusiast who is concerned about the military, Xia, as a country with an ideology that is not aligned with Xinjiang. The miserable situation in Ike is like a hellish demon, like a maggot with bones. It makes people break out in a cold sweat and feel scared and unable to sleep. Because at this moment, the military strength of Xia country is not stronger than that of Ike country. Everyone put themselves in their shoes and imagine what the outcome would be if Xiaguo were to face the attack of Eagle Sauce. The result is chilling. Can't fight, really can't fight. The military equipment of Ike is not inferior to that of Xia, and the military structure and tactics are also similar to those of Xia. Even in the steel flood composed of thousands of tanks in Ike, there are over 2,000 domestically produced Type 69 tanks from Xia. Even if their performance is inferior to Xia's current tanks, the difference is not too big. The reason for the rapid collapse of the Ike Empire was due to the complete loss of air superiority under the Eagle Sauce Information War. Whether it's a torrent of steel or a military base, they have all been opened up by the fighter jets and military commanders of the Eagle Sauce coalition. Opening a Type 69 tank on the Bay Area battlefield is no more difficult than opening a can of yellow peaches. In this era, even a Type 69 tank sells 500,000 green coins to the country of Ike. Another type of canned food in Ike called T-74, even priced at 700,000 green coins. Green coins are Eagle Sauce currencies, widely used worldwide. At this time, the official exchange rate for the 1 yuan Eagle Sauce green coin is equal to 5 yuan Summer National Red coin. That is to say, a tank in the country of Ike is worth approximately 2 million red coins or more. Lin Can's eyes gradually focused and became lively. Selling tractors, one tractor only sells for tens of thousands of red coins. Where can we compare to selling tanks? A tank costs millions of red coins. Isn't it just 2 tracks that emit black smoke when driving, the kind that can run? Our factory can also do it. Lin Can suddenly made a decision and knew what to do. Hydra anti-aircraft tank, tracked quadruple gun anti-aircraft tank, with a maximum range of 50,000 meters, an effective range of 30,000 meters, and a maximum firing rate of 2,000 rounds. Enemy search radar, fire control radar, effective detection range of 100 kilometers, simultaneously locking 30 units of the target and attacking 4 units of the target. Equipped with a hunting dog-type machine soul and a semi-intelligent system. P.S. Don't be bitten by it, otherwise you will beg for death and cannot. Lin Can finally determine this STC plan in his mind, taking into account the direction of the Blue Star situation in his current production capacity. We need to create something that has potential buyers and sell it. What Xia Guo and his own agricultural machinery factory resource circle can barely create at present. The Hydra anti-aircraft tank is relatively good, even in the Golden Age. It was also an anti-aircraft vehicle for human ground forces. The technical difficulty is not too high, and currently, agricultural machinery factories can produce a simplified version by gritting their teeth. But it is also a necessary product for a country, and it is basically not worried about selling. Of course, if Lin Can were to make an interstellar battleship, Eagle Sauce would be eager to take it. At this industrial level, we can't even achieve it, even if Lin Can really does. Moreover, whether in the past or present life, Eagle Sauce is basically opposite to Xiaguo, and Lin Can has no favorable impression of Eagle Sauce. So Lin Can is more inclined to do business in the country of Ike and earn money from the oil tycoons. Just say it and do it. Lin Can picked up a pen and paper and began to lay on his desk and draw pictures. In this era, computers have not yet become popular, and even Apple computers are still big-headed machines that can only be used for mine-sweeping, which is almost boring for office use. Small agricultural machinery factories don't even need computers, so Lin Can needs to draw various drawings of the Hydra anti-aircraft tank. This is a massive project, drawing and annotating parameters. It took Lin Can almost 5 days to complete the sketch, which was stacked over an inch high. It's time to hold a technical meeting and start making samples for the first prototype car. P.S. The image is a conceptual diagram of the Hydra anti-aircraft tank. Chapter 6. Make a Beggar version. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In fact, Lin Kan had just confirmed the feasibility of the Hydra anti-aircraft tank during the drawing process. This thing is so suitable, it is definitely a lifesaver for the upcoming war in Ike. And it is also the lowest technological content among the STCs mastered by Lin Kan, and currently the most capable equipment unit to be produced. If it's even harder, Xia Guo Agricultural Machinery Factory will have no choice. Not only can they not do it themselves, but even the familiar industrial chain and outsourcing circle of agricultural machinery factories are unable to provide parts. And for the Hydra anti-aircraft tank, it happens to get stuck at a point. It is also a tracked tank chassis, and the agricultural machinery factory also produces tracked tractors. The 9-headed snake anti-aircraft tank STC mastered by Lin Kan was one of the elective exam courses he took when he first took the junior engineer exam in Mars Casting World. It can be said that the entire Hydra anti-aircraft tank, how to do it as a high-end version, and how to do it as a simple version of the Beggar version under insufficient conditions. Lin Kan has mastered these technologies to perfection, and as long as the manpower and materials are in place, he is basically not afraid of not being able to make this thing. After the drawings were completed, Lin Kan immediately urged the heads of all departments to have a meeting. Directly hold a factory-wide mobilization meeting. Lin Kan looked around the conference room and found that everyone except for 3 shareholders was present. Let's have a meeting next. Before the meeting, before announcing the new product, let me say something. The upcoming product catalog will apply for patents from both national and international sources, and may even be classified technology by the state. So when I see this brochure, all the colleagues involved in this project need to sign a confidentiality agreement. Is there a problem? Lin Kan is actually just a matter of routine. When asked, he himself doesn't care about any leaks or the like. Due to the current industrial capacity of Xia country, he produced a simplified version of the Hydra anti-aircraft tank. The complete and complex version is still stored in my mind. In this era, inland workers have no channels for leaks, and they are not even aware of the value of the things they come into contact with. Everyone didn't pay attention to Lin Kan's words and nodded in agreement. Upon seeing this, Lin Kan sent out the confidentiality agreement and asked everyone to sign it before collecting it. Then send out the several design blueprints in your hand. This is our new product. Each department should take a look at the situation, especially the technical department, to see if there is any difficulty. Don't worry, if you have any questions, just say them directly and bring them up. Let's solve them together. In front of me, never be submissive in front of others and complain endlessly behind them. I like to be straightforward. Everyone saw that Lin Kan really had a new product design drawing out, and as they watched Lin Kan's subordinates follow a bunch of drawings, it seemed that they were well prepared. So everyone became interested and carefully flipped through the blueprint that was sent to them. Factory director, what is this? It's a tank car. After seeing the picture, Zhang Wei from the technical department was shocked and shouted loudly. Oh, more than that, these 4 cannons are even more tanks than tanks. It's a bit like a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun armored vehicle. The young engineers in the electrical department are also excited. Lin Kan glanced at the 2 of them, and everyone was shocked by Lin Kan's design. They all looked at Lin Kan in surprise. What do children know? Don't talk nonsense, what is a tank gun? To correct you, this is a tracked agricultural artificial rainfall vehicle with a high-altitude bird repellent and mosquito repellent effect. Lin Kan is a serious person. Oh. Zhang Wei let out a strange cry with a long tail sound, and everyone also had an expression of disbelief. Lin Kan didn't care about all this and continued. Don't worry about the functionality and usefulness of this thing. First take a look at the manufacturing difficulty and parameters, and see if it can be made. Each person has a blueprint with several sheets of paper, including performance indicators and parameter diagrams of important components in the renderings. Upon hearing that Lin Kan was serious, everyone turned to the blueprint at the back. Factory Director. The required hardness and weight of this car body metal cannot be achieved by our factory's metallurgical forging level. Is this a reliable military armor level? As tractors, we never expected to use them to block shells before. We can make the barrel with rifling at this moment, but the material requirements are also relatively high. The most powerful alloy we have ever made before is the blade for farming. The person in charge of the forging department will speak first. Well, I've considered this issue, the body armor. Let's use tractor steel plates for the body panels. It's not that they can't be used. But the barrel strength must be sufficient. You can negotiate with the technical department to resolve this issue, and I will provide you with a solution. If it really can't be done, then take my technical solution and ask a large factory for procurement. Lin Kan replied like this. This thing is ultimately going to be sold to the Ike fighter jet, and it is not meant to be used against tanks, so armor performance can be sacrificed a bit. But when firing at high speeds, the gun barrel cannot be accommodated, it must be durable and meet the standard. Factory Director, I also have some questions here. The second speaker is the head of the assembly department. We cannot achieve the surging power you requested. Our current diesel engine with the highest power output is less than 1/10 of the required horsepower. Another thing is the tank chassis, which is not only made of all steel tracks, but also one circle larger than ours, which is very different from our track tractors. Upon hearing this, Lin Kan paused for a moment, with thoughts flashing through his mind. Agricultural machinery factories do not produce power themselves, and there are only a few fixed power plants in the entire Xia country. Moreover, there is no need for Lin Kan to establish his own power production workshop in order to produce Hydra anti-aircraft tanks, mainly because he has no money or strength. Even if Lin Kan wants to build a power workshop in the future, he will not produce diesel or gasoline engines. But it's directly producing high-tech engines that use promethium as fuel, but that's all for later. So currently, the power of this thing still needs to be purchased during the entrepreneurial period. In terms of power, try to buy the maximum power diesel engine we can buy. As for the territory, let's just make do with using a tractor and install it to barely walk. Lin Kan instructed. Still the same principle as before, this thing is for the Ike country to fight planes and is used in conjunction with armored forces. It does not require bulletproof or high maneuverability. Lin Kan is confident that as long as it is the location where the 9-headed snake anti-aircraft tank is stationed, Eagle Sauce's aircraft will come and go, and it is very safe without any need for maneuvering. Besides, it has been said that this is the Beggar version, and to put it simply, it is normal. The true value of the Hydra lies in its superior air defense performance and firepower. Chapter 7. Semi-Artificial Intelligence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Factory Director, I have a big problem here. After Lin Kan comforted the heads of the forging and assembly departments, the electrical department supervisor stood up. According to the technical parameters you requested, this tank requires independent detection radar and advanced fire control radar. I'm also a military enthusiast. A radar with such parameters can't even be used by the National Army, right? The head of the electrical department, Liao Deming, pushed his own eyeglass frame and asked Lin Kan a question. Lin Kan turned his head to look at Liao Deming, but before Lin Kan could speak, he interrupted him. And what is this? This hunting dog type mech soul you're talking about? Semi-artificial intelligence. To be frank, the last time I saw this word was in a science fiction magazine abroad. Liao Deming is a top student at a certain electronics college, so he works as the electrical department head at a farm machinery factory without relying on connections or abilities. He is knowledgeable, so after seeing Lin Kan's design blueprint, he couldn't believe it at all. Don't get excited, sit down and say. Lin Kan waved his hand at Liao Deming, and the other person stood up unconsciously. Regarding your 2 questions, you can come to me in the technical department after the meeting. I have a specialized and mature design blueprint for you. Let's just follow the drawings, but this is very important, more important than materials than power. We must fully meet the parameters. If we cannot do it ourselves, we will spend money on outsourcing factories to achieve it, regardless of cost. Radar and control machine Soul are the top priorities of the Hydra anti-aircraft tank. Without this thing, it would be an ordinary tracked anti-aircraft gun, which cannot be called a technological weapon. So Lin can save on other aspects and can use the Beggar version. Radar and Mech Soul are not suitable here. Radar is the eye, Mech Soul is the brain. This can be done in castration or simplified versions, but there must be a limit. It is indeed useful to ensure that customers receive it, as it can reach the Eagle sauce plane. Otherwise, how can we sell money? Who else? Do you have any questions? After arranging the questions from the electrical department, Lin can ask again. There's no problem with everyone now. Lin can has a solution to the key issue. Before being privately contracted, the agricultural machinery factory had also worked on military armored vehicles, so they also had experience in building Hydra anti-aircraft tanks. So no one spoke up for a moment. Okay, let's break up the meeting first. I'll go to the technical department to sort and organize the drawings, and distribute them to various departments to make budgets in 2 days. After completing the budget, you can directly start the trial production of the prototype. In the technical department office, several young men have been arranged to draw pictures. Lin can only drew an outline, providing technical requirements and parameters. They still need to organize and draw detailed diagrams for each department and position. Handsome, so handsome. Technology Minister Zhang Wei looked at the concept picture of the Hydra anti-aircraft tank on his desk, showing a hint of intoxication. He is also a military enthusiast. Ah, not good. Zhang Wei suddenly let out a strange cry, patted his forehead, and his face turned ugly. He turned his head to look at Lin Kan. Since being contracted, our factory has revoked its military industry license and has been incorporated into the military industry factory system, right? Is it illegal for us to make this thing, this tank car? Lin Kan glanced at Zhang Wei and said calmly. I have no memory of it. I mentioned that this is called a tracked agricultural artificial rainfall vehicle, equipped with artificial rainfall bombs and high-altitude mosquito repellent bombs. We are an agricultural machinery factory, and it is also reasonable to produce such agricultural vehicles. Lin Kan was a bit perfunctory, with a hint of lying with his eyes open. Because Lin Kan knows that he has a massive amount of high-tech weapon equipment STC, it is not too easy to obtain a military industry license in the future. This is not a problem. The reason why Lin Kan has not directly reported to the official now is that he has submitted himself to the official. That's because Lin Kan knows that in this stage and era, his situation is even more unconstrained when he works alone. It is easier to quickly achieve a career. If you submit it to yourself, you may have to hide your name for decades and engage in research, and even have worldly wisdom nowadays. Lin Kan directly outsource his technical STC, where can he adapt to that rhythm? There are pros and cons to submitting oneself to the authorities, and even the drawbacks outweigh the benefits. Although Zhang Wei also knows that Lin Kan is being serious and nonsense, he really likes Lin Kan's confident tone. So Zhang Wei no longer pursued legality, but turned his attention to another point. Even if we make agricultural machinery, it's not cheap to do so. There shouldn't be any farm in China that can afford this, so who should we sell it to? Undoubtedly a young person, a highly talented graduate in mechatronics integration. Beating the snake and hitting the 7-inch mark also got to the point of asking questions. Lin Kan couldn't help but admire Zhang Wei. It doesn't matter, I am currently serving as the head of the business department, and of course, I will be looking for sales channels. You are responsible for implementing each process as soon as possible, and then making the process well to determine the cost. As soon as it can be processed, we don't have much time. It is now the end of November 1990, and Lin Can said that there is not much time left because in January 1991, Eagle Sauce will launch the Ike Kingdom. And once the war starts, it will end in less than 2 months. So the Hydra thing needs to be sold before this, otherwise it would be meaningless if Ike was defeated. A complete STC is an intelligent system of the Golden Age. If you ask STC about the steps to manufacture a Hydra anti-aircraft tank in an industrial environment in 1990. So STC will provide the optimal and most cost-effective construction plan based on the current industrial level and material level of Blue Star in 1990. Of course, it is impossible for Lin Can to install a complete STC intelligent system in his mind and bring it back to Blue Star. In fact, during the Golden Age, the computer rooms that loaded STCs were several football fields in size. It includes all aspects of technology and knowledge during the heyday of humanity. Lin Can just happen to have read hundreds of STC catalogs, including Hydra anti-aircraft tanks, for the sake of work. This includes how to manufacture, repair, and maintain Hydra anti-aircraft tanks during the M2, M5, M10, and M20 eras. Lin Can is like studying mathematics, physics, and chemistry, memorizing the answers given by STC to cope with vocational qualification exams. Of course, Lin Can was a Jinren in his past life, so he was able to remember a vast amount of knowledge that ordinary people on Blue Star could not possibly remember. The M2 era happened to be the appearance of Blue Star in 2000. It is now 1990, so the blueprint design that Lin Can presented can still be achieved. And with the support of Lin Can's absolutely correct outline, several members of the technical department stayed up all night for 2 days and also released the huge drawing library to deliver. Distribute to various departments, and then budget the cost. Lin Can shouted loudly. Another day passed. What? The preliminary estimated cost is 2.3 million red coins. Lin Can exclaimed loudly. Silence lasted for half a minute. It's okay, I'll come up with a solution. Chapter 8. Project Initiation and Construction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xia Guo Agricultural Machinery Factory is at least a factory that can independently assemble agricultural tractors. Although the power is directly purchased and the gearbox is directly purchased, ultimately the factory is only responsible for forging and processing some parts without technical content. For example, the casing of a tractor, such as the steering wheel and seats, but at least you also have experience in car manufacturing, right? Think about 23 years ago, many so-called new forces in the automotive industry dared to lay out new energy vehicles even at this level, so when the technical department has sorted out Lin Can's blueprint and done a good job in segmentation and craftsmanship. Each department can barely understand the processing drawings for the corresponding positions they receive. Let's not say if the core technical components look good or not, at least we can roughly create a budget according to the drawings and requirements. I know how much it will cost to make this thing. In fact, everything that can be processed by oneself in the factory is easy to say and not expensive. Even though Lin Can has performance requirements for metal materials, he is much more rigorous than tractors. Even the steel required for the 9-headed snake gun barrel is basically the highest metal material required for the entire tank. After sacrificing armor defense requirements. But if the forging department smelts and shapes according to the technical parameters provided by Lin Can and the proportion, it can also be produced. High-end materials, in most cases, are the proportion of alloy elements, and the timing and process of adding various elements have already been determined. If there are no technical parameters, if we only provide you with samples, you may not be able to crack them for several years. The difference is 1,000 miles away. But with detailed parameters and processes provided by Lin Can, it is no longer a problem. There's no problem with the turret, so it's better to handle the body, chassis, and electrical wires. It doesn't matter if the requirements are higher than those of a tractor, it can be done with a lot of money. Lin Can is not afraid of throwing money. This thing will be sold as a military weapon to an oil-rich dog tycoon. I earn green coins, and no matter how much red coins I throw here, I can make a profit, not to mention a return of more than 10 times. The biggest challenge now lies in the onboard radar and the main control unit. This thing is indeed a bit difficult. One is electronic technology, and the other is computer technology. It's really not something that agricultural machinery factories can play with. The electrical department of Xiaguo Agricultural Machinery Factory is usually responsible for designing electronic circuits for a tractor. Study where to install the headlights and what power is suitable for the electric motor. They don't have electronic technology engineers. They are ultimately weak electricians. If they were to use radar and semi-intelligent computers, it would definitely be a challenge for them. Even if Lin Can provides the technical parameters, they cannot understand them and are not in the same field at all. But this is also relatively easy to handle, just spend money. Before being contracted, the agricultural machinery factory was actually a state-owned factory within a legitimate system. Even in the past, there was a period of glory, and the tractors produced were the top sellers in the Shaoxiang province. At that time, Xiaguo Agricultural Machinery Factory also had a small reputation within the system and knew many big shots in the industry. Although it has been contracted now, the official is not responsible for allocating resources. After coming back to life, there have been fewer contacts. But this time it was the Agricultural Machinery Factory who paid someone else to work. There is still a difference between asking for money to come in and sending money out. Anyway, Lin Can has no intention of saving money on the 9-headed snake, especially in areas where money shouldn't be saved. Why not directly seek the state-owned Electric Power Technology Group for processing? In the state-owned CETC Group, when Lin Can heard that the company's name was still on TikTok in his previous life, a warrior surnamed Chen angrily resented 2 officers and forced him to work overtime. Later, upon investigation, it was discovered that this company was the most powerful electronic radar manufacturer in Xia country. Their company is involved in everything from artillery to Eastern Express, electronic technology. Such a powerful enterprise in the future will certainly not be inferior now. After all, STC is a manufacturing process that is suitable for the current industrial environment, if state-owned electric power group cannot produce it. There are no other companies in Xia country that can have this ability. So the responsible persons for technology, electrical, and procurement combined and directly approached state-owned electric power group for an inquiry. The quoted price is about 200,000 red coins just for the main control unit sole and the car-mounted radar. And the total of other things does not exceed 50,000 red coins. It means that a Hydra anti-aircraft tank needs at least 250,000 red coins to be grabbed, and it's still a beggar's version. Everyone couldn't help but shudder at the sight of the situation. In this era where there is still the title of a household with 10,000 yuan, and in an era where workers pay 500 yuan each, is the cost of a tractor worth 250,000 yuan? Zhang Wei couldn't help but look at Lin Can, his face a bit dull. Are you still saying this is an agricultural vehicle? Are you growing golden beans on the farm? Do you need such expensive agricultural vehicles? Lin Can ignored it and waved his hand, placing an order. First, make a sample set, pay a 30% deposit in advance, and promise that as long as the product performance meets the standards, purchase no less than 100 sets in the future. Originally, state-owned Electric Power Technology Group was also at the level of a leader in state-owned factories. Although 200,000 yuan is not a lot, it is not too much for them. Small factories like Xiaguo Agricultural Machinery Factory from Ningcheng are reluctant to come and sample a set of products. Not to mention that there is only a 30% deposit left. However, it is said that there are still more than 100 orders in the future, and state-owned electric technology has also taken it seriously and invited Xia Guo, the procurement manager of the agricultural machinery factory, to go over and discuss in detail. Zhang Wei from the technical department also kept an eye on it and took the initiative to go with the procurement manager. He needs to check and shuffle the drawings and technology of his own factory, breaking up the machine soul and radar components separately. Let the other party deliver the semi-finished products directly, and then the technical department of the agricultural machinery factory and the electrical department will assemble the finished products according to the drawings. In this era, the protection of patented technology in China may not be as complete. If someone sees out what it is, what's the use, and takes away the technology, you'll have nowhere to cry. Not to mention anything else, Xia Guo Agricultural Machinery Factory's previous flagship product, tractors, was actually stolen from someone else's factory. Lin Can looked at Zhang Wei from the technical department with great appreciation for this. And they went there. Actually, Lin Can is not very worried about the leakage of radar and mech soul technology. In itself, what Lin Can is preparing to sell to the country of Ike is not the most advanced technology in his hands. The radar and mech soul manufactured this time are actually castrated versions. If Xia Guo also needs it by then, Lin can also create something with better results. However, the cost will definitely be a bit more expensive. And this time, the one aimed at Ike is one with just the right performance and quality to counter the Eagle Sauce active combat aircraft. There is no overflow of performance at all, just barely enough, and one can willingly empty the wallet of an oil man. Chapter 9. Consulate of Ike. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There is no need to recall all workers when manufacturing prototypes. The production of tractors has stopped in the workshop, and the entire factory area is only providing sampling services for new products. Each department only leaves a small number of skilled workers to work, while the rest are on vacation. However, the workshop is empty and there are no idle people, only skilled technicians. The trial production of the first prototype also seemed exceptionally smooth. Lin Can's Ho stayed at the metallurgical workshop of the forging department for almost a week, watching with his own eyes as the workers initially scrapped several pots of molten steel due to lack of proficiency. Slowly start smelting steel billets that meet Lin Can's requirements, and after starting forging and machining. Lin Can calmed down this time and solved the material problem. He is not worried about anything else. Lin Can left the workshop, washed away the greasiness and fatigue, and had a beautiful sleep. The next morning, Lin Can found his once-in-a-century rare suit and put it on. Compared to the mirror in the dormitory, there is a handsome young man who writes about his youth and vitality all over his face. Although not as handsome as the cream kids in later generations, it can still be considered a durable type. A height of 1.85 meters paired with a black suit doesn't have the comical feeling of children wearing adult clothes. Perhaps Lin Can III was a person with a temperament accumulated over time in his eyes, and he was not as confident or too sharp as an ordinary 18-year-old boy. Lin Can, on the other hand, has a hint that can easily impress people at a glance, making them unconsciously believe in his aura. Of course, it's not enough to convince Director Li and his kind of old antiques who are solely focused on selling factories. But in just one sentence, Lin Can said that so many middle, senior, and skilled workers in the factory are willing to follow him to make tanks. There are also some aura bonuses from Lin Can. Lin Can smiled and was quite satisfied with his appearance and performance. He is not an appearance association, and he is not prepared to use his own notes to date girls. But because Lin Can is preparing to go on a business trip. Lin Can also serves as the head of the business department in the factory. Moreover, for the Hydra anti-aircraft tank, I won't go out and find customers myself. Others really can't play around and don't know where to sell it. After all, this is also something tailored by Lin Can for precise customers, and it must be sold to specific people to maximize its value. Originally, Lin Can was worried that he was too young to convince others when he went out to discuss business. If you look at it this way, I'm worried that it's a bit unnecessary. Not to mention talking to a client like this, even a wealthy woman can be easily captured. Lin Can smiled, tidied up her hair, and then went out. When they reached the 3.5-floor broadcasting room, the announcer greeted Lin Can and watched him go downstairs with bright eyes. Lin Can arrived at the procurement department office. Zhang Wei and Li Ting have already returned from state-owned electric power technology, explaining the needs of the agricultural machinery factory and arranging the handover of technical drawings. As the procurement minister, Li Ting even demonstrated some professional skills and negotiated a bit with the other party. The radar and mech soul system, which were originally estimated to cost 200,000 red coins, were cut to 188,000 red coins by him. Now we have done everything that needs to be done for procurement, but state-owned electric power technology stated that it is still quite difficult to make the things needed by Xiaguo agricultural machinery factory. Even if only one prototype is needed, it will take at least 20.30 days to produce. This still needs to be provided by Xia Guo agricultural machinery factory with the drawings and technical parameters without any problems, without the need for much effort. After listening to their report, Lin Can nodded in recognition of their work. Encouraged the two of them. By the way, who received you when you went to Jianke Group? Do you have a business card? Lin Can suddenly asked. It's a business department manager from their company, named Wang Cheng. There is a business card, I'm looking for it. Li Ting replied and then began flipping through his briefcase. They represented Xia Guo agricultural machinery factory to negotiate business with state-owned electric technology, and in the business relationship, Xia Guo agricultural machinery factory is the gold owner, while state-owned electric technology is the supplier. So the person who received Li Ting and the other person on the other side also had a considerable weight. Although Xiaguo agricultural machinery factory is just a small, non-mainstream factory, it's here. What do you want to do with this? Is there anything else you need to communicate with the other party? Li Ting flipped out his business card and handed it to Lin Can, casually asking a question. Lin Can waved his hand. It's okay, I borrowed your one for a while, I'm on a business trip. I have handed over the business with the electric power group to you, so I completely trust you and will not interfere. Let's go. Lin Can receive the business card and bid farewell to Li Ting and the others, leaving the factory gate. In this era, private cars are not yet very popular. In underdeveloped areas and rural areas, having a motorcycle can be considered a very foreign presence. Only households with over 10,000 yuan are eligible to ride motorcycles. The Santana car on the main road was a luxury car equivalent to a Rolls-Royce in later generations. And a few taxis are all Xiaoli cars. This thing is expensive nowadays, but in later generations it is equivalent to an old man's low-end car. However, even so, the agricultural machinery factory does not have Xiaoli, but instead has two shared motorcycles. If Lin Can is on a business trip this time, it is definitely not possible to ride a motorcycle on a long journey. He will wear a black suit and go in a gray suit. So Lin Can could only go to the station to catch the train. I walked a few hundred meters outside the gate of the agricultural machinery factory to reach the bus stop. Having time to wait for the bus, Lin Can picked up the business card in his hand and glanced at it. Xia Guo State-Owned Electric Technology Group, Precision Electronic Technology Company, Limited, Domestic Marketing Company, Deputy General Manager. Wang Cheng. Not bad, it's quite well known. At this moment, the minibus also arrived at the station, and Lin Can satisfactorily put his business card in his pocket, showing a satisfied smile. After several rounds of turnover, buses were transferred to trains, and trains were then transferred to taxis. Lin Can arrived at the coastal metropolis of Hydra, several hundred kilometers away from Ningcheng. Hydra was the first port city in the history of Xia dynasty, and can be considered one of the few well-developed nationalized metropolises. Even in the 1990s, the development of the Magic City area began to take shape, with a hint of modernity. However, Lin Can is not here for tourism, so the route is also different from most foot traffic. I bought a city map from a roadside newspaper booth, took a luxurious taxi, and arrived at a relatively quiet street in Suhui district. Lin Kan, who got off the car, looked at a 3-story courtyard in front of him. His gaze stopped at the foreign national flag inside the courtyard and then scanned the foreign soldier guards at the entrance. After several ups and downs, I finally found the God of Wealth temple. Foreigners who can hang flags and have soldiers on guard in Xia country are foreign embassies or consulates. Lin Kan knows the national flag in the courtyard, which is the Consulate General of Ike in Hydra. Lin Kan smiled and tidied up his appearance in the distance. With a confident smile, he walked towards the courtyard in front of him. This is the Consulate General of the Republic of Iraq in Hydra. Do you have an appointment? The guard stopped Lin Kan with suppressed Xia Guo. P.S. The author wants to make a big impact and quickly code characters. Unfortunately, my ASUS 17 personal information terminal, a laptop purchased in 2017, has detected that no one is throwing flowers or monthly tickets in the novel backend. The machine soul is unhappy and unwilling to exert force. Request everyone's firepower support. Chapter 10. Almost being regarded as a scammer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Foreign consulates generally handle diplomatic affairs. Even if it is open to civilians in Xia country, they still need to apply for a visa to go to that country in order to have an intersection. The consulate is not an open tourist attraction, and not everyone can enter. To be honest, there was not much deep friendship between the countries of Ike and Xia in this era. The establishment of diplomatic relations between the two sides is symbolic. Diplomats were sent to each other, and embassies and consulates were established. However, civil exchanges are not frequent. There is no trend in Xia country to study abroad or do business in Ike country. So the guards were very puzzled about Lin Kan's sudden approach. And decisively stopped Lin Kan. If Lin Kan doesn't make an appointment and there's no good reason, he cannot enter the Consulate of Ike. Not to mention meeting the leaders of the Ike country, discussing business and selling tanks. However, Lin Kan is clearly prepared to come. There is no appointment, but I can introduce myself. Lin Kan smiled lightly and took out a business card, handing it to the entrance guard for inspection. I am the business manager of Xia Guo state-owned electric power group, and I am here today to specifically visit your country's consul. Lin Kan smiled confidently and only said one sentence without explaining too much. The guard in front of me, as the gatekeeper for consuls stationed abroad, must have received training. It's not an exaggeration to say it's a spy. They have a clear understanding of the situation and form, and certainly recognize the weight of Xia Guo state-owned electric technology group. After all, it is the largest state-owned electrical technology enterprise in Xia country, with its main business leaning towards military industry. The vast majority of military electronic products in Xia country are produced here. Lin Kan gave a faint smile and sent a message to the guard of the Ike consulate in front of him. That's the person in charge of the largest electronic military industry enterprise in Xia country, coming to visit the consul of Ike. Sure enough, the security guards of Ike country thought for a moment and came to this point. His face changed and his gaze towards Lin Kan became more serious. Mr. Wang, please wait a moment while I go to consult with the consul. The voice of the guard also decreased significantly, and then he ran towards the yard with his business card. Lin Kan, the old god, was waiting at the door without showing any signs. Not long after, someone came out of the yard. A tall man wearing a white robe and a black and white checkered headscarf quickly walked out from behind the guard. Upon seeing this, Lin Kan's eyes flickered with a faint light. This person's attire is very Middle Eastern, very Ike. It seems that as expected by Lin Kan, the name of the state-owned electric technology group is just useful, which has alarmed the big fish at the consulate. Hello, Mr. Wang. Just our consul, Lord Azabi. Azabi has a tall stature and long legs, covering a long distance with just one step. The guard walked in front of him and needed a jog to maintain a leading posture. Lord Azabi, this is Mr. Wang Cheng from the Electric Power Group. The guard conscientiously introduced both sides. Consul Azabi looked at Lin Can in confusion upon hearing this. Mr. Wang. I heard you have something to do with me. As the Consul of Ike in Xia, Xia speaks much better language than the guards and can communicate smoothly. Even though Lin is confident and radiant, his age is still here. So Consul Azabi looked at Lin Can with confusion in his eyes. Mr. Azabi, it's me looking for you. But it doesn't seem easy to talk about things here, does it? Lin Can ignored Azabi's suspicion, just smiled and pointed to the location of the two. I was impolite, please come with me. Azabi led Lin Can into the consulate and arrived at a small reception hall. Perhaps in Rome, do as the Romans do, and before starting the conversation, there were staff members who brought tea to entertain us. Lin Can took a sip of tea, moistened his throat, and then made a heartfelt response to the words he was about to speak. Cough cough. Lin Can put down his teacup and solemnly took out a business card from his pocket, handing it to Azabi. This time Lin Can's own business card. Mr. Azabi, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding just now. This is my business card. I come from Xiaguo Agricultural Machinery Factory in Ningcheng, Xiaguo. I am the business manager and my name is Lin Can. Azabi instinctively took Lin Can's business card and stood in front of him to study. But his face immediately became ugly. Xia Guo Agricultural Machinery Factory, a good helper for farmers to get rich. Chunfeng 1 and Chunfeng 2 tractors are on sale. Azabi muttered while looking at Lin Can's business card. Lin Can's business card is made relatively simple, with a strong sense of the times. On the front are the factory name, person name, and phone number. On the back is a photo of the tractor printed in color. There are wheeled and tracked versions. No wonder after reading the business card, Azabi's whole body is not doing well. Mr. Lin, do I need a reasonable explanation? Why did you use deceptive means to meet me? We don't even need your tractor. Azabi's tone was tinged with anger. I originally thought it was a military technology expert from Xia country, but it turned out to be a seller of plowing machines, with a big contrast. Make it difficult for him to accept for a moment, Lin Can also felt amused by his business card. I had no choice but to come over and didn't have time to get my business card. And Lin Can also believes that after completing the first transaction, the reputation of the agricultural machinery factory will definitely be established. I no longer need to pass business cards to others. Lin Can's awkwardness flashed away, and then he spoke confidently. Mr. Azabi, I know you're very angry, but don't be angry yet. I really want to come and discuss a business deal with you and the country you represent behind you. Of course, it's not selling tractors to you, but a product that you urgently need, which can change the transportation of heavy equipment in the country of Ike. This statement is a bit big, even Azabi is a bit curious, as it is a crucial tool for changing the fortunes of the country of Ike. At this moment, the country of Iraq has just won the Iran-Iraq war. Although we have been fighting for 8 years and owe a lot of money, the whole country is still immersed in the emotions of the world's third military power. Above the Blue Star, in addition to Eagle Sauce and Mao Xiong, there is also the most powerful Praz in the country of Ike. So it can be said that at this moment, the national fortune of Ike is like a rainbow. When Azabi saw Lin Can calmly, he immediately suppressed his anger and asked in response. Can you tell me what you have that would be what we want? Upon hearing this, Lin Can took out a concept map from his bag and handed it to Azabi. That's it. Hydra Z.Type, Tracked Agricultural Artificial Rainfall Assist Vehicle. Azabi's face was so black that it couldn't be seen, so black that it was dripping with water, and he immediately wanted to call the guards to rush people. After all, isn't this really agricultural machinery?